Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. As the pilot training industry is going through some challenging times, we at aviationfly.com are doing an interview series with the leadership of different organizations in this industry. Today, I have the absolute pleasure to speak with Phillip Adrian, CEO of MPS, one of the leading manufacturers of fixed-based simulators with over 50 devices deployed across the world. Hi, Phillip. Thank you for sharing your insights with us today. Please tell us a bit more about your organization.
Hi, Max. It's a pleasure, and thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. MPS might not be well known in the industry, but we're rapidly changing that. We're, as you're saying, one of the leading manufacturers of fixed-based devices. We have over 50 devices installed. From our main hub in the Netherlands, we deliver the simulators. We produce type-specific A320 and Boeing 737 simulators that are used by professional training organizations, by airlines, by small training organizations. And we've seen a large change in what we can bring in the training industry with regard to professional training devices for a reasonable price. And with that, see that we reach deeper into the training organization. We have a dedicated team of individuals in our main offices in the Netherlands and also at our MPS electronic section in Germany. And we have approximately 50 employees that work to our combined success. And with that, we support and we partner with our training providers, whether they're airlines or the training organizations, and make sure their success will make MPS successful as well.
Yeah. I think one of the most impressive things that I find about MPS when I look at the organization is your client and your customer roster. So can you just tell us a bit more about the wide range of organizations which have your devices, with everyone from Ryanair and how many devices they bought from you up to like training organizations in as far as the Philippines with Alpha Aviation Group Philippines.
Yeah, indeed, as you say, when MPS was started by the founder and predecessor as CEO Dick Verburg, it was started as a noble initiative to support flight training organizations. Since then, we have grown significantly from supporting aviation training organizations, like I say, the larger aviation training organizations like Alpha Aviation, both in the Philippines and now in Sharjah. Also FSC in the Netherlands. We have many training organizations in the UK. We have a very large presence in South Africa with both training organizations and with airlines. And we're now also expanding. We have devices into China and going into China. The major airlines that we're targeting now has been successful. We have Ryanair as a customer. We also now are working with Norwegian. We are about to install a device in Macau for Air Macau. And in the US, for example, what we're quite proud of is that in the last year, we have installed 2 devices at Purdue, the large university with a very well-known training program. So we have a wide range of customers that are looking for professional training devices and that can support the industry with high quality training.
Yeah. So this is really what I find so impressive. The quality of your client roster. So all these clients that you have, what products and services are you offering? Because I know you offer a number of different FTD types, and now you've also introduced some other solutions. So it would be great if you can share a bit more information about what you are offering to the wider pilot training industry.
Yeah, initially MPS focused on FTDs, so fixed-based devices. In Europe, they're FTD level 1 and level 2, and they carry a qualification as FMPT2, which is the flying part. Under the US rules, they would be called an FAA level 4, level 5, or level 6 device. Was and it still is our bread and butter. However, we are working together with our partners to provide other technology solutions and innovative solutions that will benefit the customers more. And a good example of that is what we call the enhanced software suite, in which we offer, among other things, something that many training organizations are absolutely excited about, is what we call controlled training. And controlled training allows a crew to log into the simulator without an instructor and follow a preset training simulation syllabus that is set by either the head of training or whomever, and they can do this to up their own skills. It's used as some of gamification. In addition, we're now also working on further innovations at Watts, which was unfortunately canceled due to COVID-19. We were going to show more innovations on the device, and we're currently also working on an expansion of our product range from the FMS trainer and the desktop trainer, which we have shown at EATS last year, but also into more remote training solutions that use our existing infrastructure and that will allow customers to benefit more from the blended solution that MPS can bring with devices supporting the training needs rather than the whatever the organization thinks they need. We will use a process with the customer where we work together and see what best fits and how we tie that into what MPS can offer. So we are, especially in this COVID-19 situation, we are innovating really rapidly to ensure that we can support remote training, but also that we can support training in-house in the country, wherever the organization that we're working with and we're partnering with is needing training. We are willing and helping them to provide that kind of solutions.
So it's great that you touched upon this. So why do you think is now the perfect time for an organization to consider the introduction of an FTD into their training? Keeping in mind that right now all the airlines around the world have had to reduce their capacity significantly. The financial aspect is also one which is very closely watched. So in your opinion, why does specifically an FTD simulator right now make sense?
So that's a great question. It always made sense, but I think what people realize right now is that training in-house is important. Not only the regulatory training, but also the training that will support pilots in maintaining their competencies, maintaining their qualification, and also maintaining their level of comfort. So getting an FTD in-house, you're not restricted by the travel restrictions, the international requirements on quarantine or anything else. You have direct access to the device. You don't need a large simulator center with all the costs that come with it. You have the availability of the device for your pilots, either with instructors or without instructors through the control training. And with that, you provide not only a safety increase, you also provide an opportunity for pilots to increase their skills and for you as an organization to ensure that everybody stays at the highest level without having to be restricted by not being able to go to your full flight and pay triple or quadruple the price for the same or better quality training.
Okay, that's because I think in a lot of managements of airlines and around the world, and I'm just focusing on airlines for the moment, it will be that question of maybe heads of trainings and a large part of the organization will say, getting such a device is great at the moment because it will provide pilots to use the device even without instructors. So this instructorless training capability that you have mentioned. The question will always be, okay, is it it's quite clear the value that it will add, but how will it translate into financials? So kind of what is your opinion on maybe how airlines can consider that dynamic because there might be a lot of airlines or people within airlines who are watching this interview and who will kind of then start thinking about it, and maybe the approach that they should take to put together a case which is going to benefit, their entire pilot roster, which then has a device that they can use, which is not a full flight device where the cost per session is significantly higher than for a device such as an FTD.
So that's an interesting question. I think the first thing that people need to realize is that when we're talking about FTDs or fixed-based training devices or whatever you call them, there is a mismatch of understanding what that is. What MPS produces is pretty much a full flight simulator without motion. We use the original OEM cockpit where everything is spatially correct. We have an enclosed cabin. We have an instructor operating station that rivals and exceeds many of our competitors. We have the entire infrastructure. So this is not your old-fashioned FTD where it's just basically a couple of panels and maybe it looks a lot like or maybe a little like the airplane you operate. This is the airplane you operate. So that's the first thing, is the misconception that an FTD is a lower level device. Secondly, the benefit of an FTD is that with the type specific use that you have, you can look through the use of the OEM data package. So we use Airbus and Boeing data packages to run the simulators as full flight simulators do. You have the same system interaction, you have the same eye-hand coordination, you have the same procedure training. And if you see at the onset of training, but also at different phases in a pilot's career, that motion is not an added benefit. Sometimes it can actually detract from the training objectives that you need to reach. And if you then look at the opportunity to get this at your training location or even at your headquarters. An example is at Ryanair, one of our devices is at their headquarters in Dublin. So you now bring the training capacity at the same quality as the full flight to the people. You bring an enormous possibility to the organization at a lower cost and at the same quality for training with or without an instructor. And with that, you also see that you're not as dependent on the full flight simulator capacity that will more than likely be exceeded soon, the training that is needed. You can now provide this training at a same or higher quality without the distraction of motion in some instances, and you can have it at your facility without needing a strengthened roof, a higher clearance, all simulator manufacturing requirements that quite often come with a full flight simulator. You can now place this in a large office space and run this at that point in time and provide the training right at your place where you want the training to be.
Fantastic. And so you are saying that airlines and ATOs have they have the option for MPS to bring it or to for them to get the device to be at their base. So just then coming back again to MPS. So now with COVID-19, for example, could you just share with us, the effect that it has had on MPS? So, for example, did you shut down for some time, or did you? Because I know a lot of organizations, I think MPS was one of them as well, spend that time to further innovate and look into maybe some of the things to improve their devices to make while this lockdown, this global lockdown has occurred.
Yeah, so as many in the aviation industry, of course, we have been affected by COVID-19. We have a great team with everybody chipping in. We have continued operation in a different way with remote work where possible, with people changing roles. However, we still have the same workforce, we have the same intent. What we see as one of the major impacts is the travel restrictions. We have several simulators ready for delivery, or even on ships out and already waiting for installation. However, our installation teams can not travel to those locations and support the customers in getting those devices active. So that's one of the impacts we have seen of COVID-19. Of course, we also miss the customers at our facility where we can demonstrate all the great devices and innovations that we do and the direct interactions. But overall, MPS is operating almost as normal in the new normal world. However, we do, as you rightly identify, we do foresee that innovations are needed. We have always been an innovative company. We've always been ahead of the curve and looking at what's next. And our CTO, our CCO, and I are continuously looking at the market and working with our partners, both in the current users of MPS devices as well as prospects, on what the market needs. And so we're looking at remote training to integrate into a blended solution where you use the MPS suite of training devices, from the FTD on the top side to the FMS trainer and everything in between, to ensure that you can continue your training wherever in the world, whenever in the world, and that the innovations actually serve the training requirements rather than innovate for innovation's sake. So we are continuing and accelerating these innovations and hope to roll them out to our customers to ensure that they can continue training regardless of what the world does.
Okay, fantastic. That's really fantastic to hear. So it's really good that also the confidence in the signal that you're kind of sharing with the industry. Same workforce, operating as normally. So you're even in a position to, for example, let's say we have an ATO or an airline which would like really be interested in any such device. You are also in a position right now to relatively in a good time period deliver to them a training solution for them to integrate into their maybe new simulator training, or maybe their new domestic simulator training infrastructure, or into their existing one.
Yeah, correct. In that aspect, our operation has not changed, and we can provide our devices depending on where in the world. Our build time is between 4 and 6 months, depending on the lead time of our suppliers, which are of course also affected, and then with shipping to wherever in the world, and installation that never takes more than a week. We could be up and ready in many places of the world within 6 to 8 months of signing of a contract, and that is for devices, and many other training solutions are available for almost immediate use.
Okay, that is really fantastic to hear. So anyone who's watching this who would like to know more about this and maybe consider this as something for their training organization, I highly recommend checking out Philip's profile, which will be tagged in here. Now let's move on a bit from, okay, COVID has occurred, the global lockdown is currently starting to ease again. What are your predictions specifically for the industry in the future? Like, for example, do you think we will see a large number of new simulator training centers being developed in the coming 1 to 2 years, due to governments and airlines maybe starting to have a preference for the simulator training infrastructure to be in country? What are your predictions for the industry now, for, let's say, for the coming year to 2 years?
Predictions are always fraught with risk. In aviation, we have been caught out with predictions many times, but I do foresee that post COVID-19, one of the lessons that we will learn in the aviation industry is that we cannot be depending on travel to other countries freely uh, being able to go all over the world, whether it is from the US to the Middle East, or from Southeast Asia to Europe. These restrictions are something that is above and beyond what we have ever expected. So yes, I do foresee a drive for local training centers. I do not foresee them to be the simulator centers as we know them. The simulator centers as we know them are the dedicated centers where we have a significant amount of full flight devices and fixed base devices and training classroom locations. I do foresee these training centers to be filled with a good mix of FTDs and other remote training devices. I believe that for a full flight training, travel will still be necessary, just for the simple fact that it will require a significant amount of investment, not only upfront, but also to keep it running. And so I do foresee that the training center of the future will look more like a local training center where you can do most of the type rating, keep your pilots current, but the full flight might be outsourced, or for larger airlines, it might be required to have 1 or 2 full flight simulators at that training center.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
what the world will look like, as the second part of your question, what we see worldwide is that traffic within countries and within continents is picking up. We do foresee at MPS that the narrow body training requirements are going to go through the roof, for the simple fact that the intercontinental travel is still very slow, and with all the restrictions in travel, you now see an early retirement of wide body fleets, with a seniority flow that normally favors the wide bodies at the end of the career. These pilots will now have to be retrained to narrow bodies, the A320 and the Boeing 737 series. So there's additional training there. There's either a furlough or a layoff of pilots that either want to or have to stay current, which adds to the training requirement. So overall, what we foresee is that there is going to be a significant increase over the next 2 years in training on the narrow bodies, and that airlines, low-cost airlines, are in a great position already because their cost structure is good. But even major airlines will focus on their money-making way of getting their narrow bodies to and from countries that are close by, that are safe to travel to, and get their traffic flows up. And with that comes not only a requalification training for those pilots that have not flown, but also a retraining to different equipment, and the normal training that is already part of the regulated training requirements.
Okay. And talking about that kind of training infrastructure and what airlines are going to do, I think one of the questions which I come across a lot by a lot of people in the industry is, over the past few years, we've seen a really big push by the large aircraft OEMs such as Airbus into very specifically the simulator training space. With Airbus having opened up a number of simulator centers around the world. What is, do you think that, not particularly Airbus, but do you think that OEMs will, that we'll see an increasing trend where OEMs, be it airline, be it aircraft manufacturers or large full flight simulator manufacturers, will continue this trend and be opening up new simulator centers and simulator training infrastructure? Or do you think we'll see a reverse of this trend and see maybe more independent players enter the space?
That's a complex question. The answer to that is yes. Okay. What we will continue to see is the organizations that are at the top of the food chain, Airbus and Boeing, to continue to provide training. The simple fact is that those airplanes that they produce, whether it's the A320 series or the 737 MAX will come online soon again, those airplanes will be flown by pilots. What needs to be done is for the benefit of the customers as well as for the flying public, we want to have high quality training to support the training of these pilots. So with the airlines taking delivery of a large amount of new airplanes into their fleet, they quite often run out of crews and run out of the capability for the crews. So for the OEMs, it's important that there is always trained crews available to fly these airplanes. So for the introduction of new or more airplanes into their fleet, the OEMs will support their customers with training. What we also foresee is that with the current wave of early retirements and the continuing retirements that are coming in industry, there will be significant need for training from the bottom up. So the training organizations, the smaller training organizations that have been providing that flow into the airlines, they will flourish once again soon. How the landscape will look like is difficult to forecast, but the one thing that we know for sure is that with the drive for more local training, for two reasons. First of all, the restriction of the travel will drive to local training. But what you also see is that with the investment that many countries have done into their national airlines to boost up, they also want something back. So they want their locals to be in the front seats of those airplanes. So they want to provide an infrastructure to their people because with the tax money, they supported their national airlines. So you'll see a national drive, and with that, an opportunity for many training organizations that support their local airlines and are more vertically integrated. So rather than a training organization that trains for 17 different airlines, you will see a training organization that is focused on the needs of one or maybe two local airlines and support that need. And they are able to then direct the flow of their candidates to the airline, and the airline is able to control the quality from the beginning, with the government being there as a mitigating factor and supporting the industry as a whole and the national interests as a whole.
Okay, and that's quite interesting because especially before COVID-19, there was a lot of talk about the global shortage of qualified airline pilots, which based on the data that we're seeing at Aviation Fly, with us covering over 360 pilot training organizations around some of the more emerging regions of the world, was that this shortage of qualified airline pilots was severely different or varies by region and by country. And so with you saying this point as well, that the governments are going to even further increase their preference for their local pilots to get to the cockpit, I think this is going to be quite interesting, and this might even at the end of the day just continue this trend of some regions facing a really significant shortage of qualified airline pilots, while others might have too many. And so hopefully the market will balance itself out over the coming years, because even me, I'm of the view that we will have, with COVID-19 now, it has actually accelerated the retirement wave. And so we will see in, let's say a year's time, once things start ramping up to the levels again, what they were before COVID, let's say in 1.5 years' time, then there's going to be possibly a real, even more intense shortage of pilots than there is now. And I know that's quite a tricky point, because right now so many pilots are unfortunately losing their job all across the world, and it's really sad to see as an industry. But what might happen is that in 1.5 years' time, that the shortage could be even greater than what it was before COVID-19, due to less training providers being in the space, because quite a few have shut, and due to this accelerated retirement wave. So I'm optimistic, and I see certainly mm, uh, things improving, maybe quite a bit more rapidly than some of the industry are predicting, in terms of it taking 4 years to get back to the same level. So let's hope I'm right, but we never know looking into the future. Philip, I want to ask you, what innovative technology, and of course this doesn't have to be something that MPS is working on at the moment, and maybe something I just want to ask you for your opinion on what innovative technology are you particularly excited about, what we might see in the future in the simulator training space. And once again, if they please do not reveal anything that MPS is working on, but just maybe it could be like, for example, in the flight training space, there's a big discussion now with electric training aircraft, with Pipistrel having received their EASA type certification, I think just this week. And so there's a big discussion about that. So what do you see, what trends do you see in the simulator training space, which you are particularly excited about?
So first of all, you're absolutely right. I think electrification of the flight training aircraft is the way to go. As an industry, we have to be aware that even though COVID-19 has happened, our carbon dioxide emission levels are required to go back. With national aviation kind of being in the spotlight as a recipient of tax money, you see many countries driving a CO2 emission reduction drive, canceling possibly very short flights. You see that, but also with that, in the FSTD space, what we foresee is that an initiative that we started with EASA and the Dutch Aerospace Institute, NLR, and other partners, which is called ABLE, Aviation Blended Learning Environment, which will be allowing large training organizations, airlines, but also small training organizations to specify what we call a task-to-tool analysis. So rather than use the old-fashioned setup as we have used for the past 50 years, what ABLE and the possibility that provides is that we can now optimize the use of any training device. So rather than looking at a tool, and I always use VR as an example. VR is great for certain trainings. However, use VR for training that you can do in a paper flight deck is a $5,000 solution for a $5 problem. And what ABLE does, and especially in the simulation training world, is it optimizes and looks at the objectives that need to be reached during training, and then identifies, okay, what do we need to reach that objective? Is that a piece of technology like a full flight simulator? Is that an FTD? But it could also be technology that does not yet exist in the training industry. So I'm really excited about that opportunity, because it will put us on par with the gaming industry, with the medical industry, where there is a lot of innovation possibility. And in the world of aviation training, innovation has been kind of stagnant because we have such a high safety level. Everybody's worried that innovation will lead to a lower safety. So ABLE is, and I've posted about this in blogs and spoken, that's one of the most exciting opportunities that I foresee, because it will drive a possibility into the training industry of actually choosing your device and optimizing that. The second part of that is the competency-based training rather than the compliance-based training that we're looking at. EBT is now a buzzword in industry, but what people maybe not realize is that EBT is only for the recurrent training part of an airline pilot. What we're looking at in the world of aviation training is now competency-based training. So rather than looking at, is somebody able to deal with this specific hydraulic failure and do that over and over again until they have the capability to deal with that failure, only to find out that the failure in real life is always slightly different. What the aviation world is now looking at is competency-based training, is providing the pilots with the comfort, the competence of dealing with anything and everything that comes their way. And with that comes a whole different training paradigm that I'm incredibly excited about, because it will lead to a difference in training that will make pilots able to deal with everything that comes their way, while optimizing the training facilities and training syllabi of the training organizations.
Okay, that's quite interesting. I would definitely look forward to seeing more announcement from MPS. So just for everyone watching, Phillip quite often posts blogs, on his thoughts on the industry, on developments that he sees, on calling for the industry to work together on certain initiatives. So I do highly recommend checking out his profile and connecting with him. I think what we'll also do is just following this interview, will include a small video just for people to get a sense of what an MPS FTD device looks like, even from the outside. So the cockpit is going to be the same as any airline cockpit, as any A320, Boeing 737 or 737 Max cockpit, but also what it looks like from the outside, and just show a bit more about the products that you're offering. But I would really like to thank you for sharing your insights with us today. And I look forward to seeing more announcements from MPS. I've seen even now, just before COVID, there was a number of different customers which really saw the huge value that an FTD was bringing to the organization. Me, myself, I've seen this previously as well. Even though I'm not a pilot, I've looked at it from an operational perspective and from from the different metrics. And I definitely am a big believer in the introduction of FTD. So thank you very much, Phillip.
Well, thank you so much, Max, for your time. Stay safe and healthy, and to our customers, there is an upside on the end, and MPS is there to help you through that and going into a bright future. Thank you for your time, Max, and I hope we connect again.
Thank you very much, Phillip.
Multi-Pilot Simulations, MPS, designs and manufactures advanced fixed-base simulators for the professional flight training industry. MPS delivers the next generation of simulators, filling the void for affordable, high-quality training devices. The result is high-quality simulators with the ability to offload full-motion simulators at a fraction of the cost. Airlines and flight schools have to cope with the strong demand for new pilots. Regulation permits a large part of a pilot's training to be conducted on fixed-base simulators. MPS simulators have the fidelity and functionality of the highest-level full-flight simulators, lowering the cost for training dramatically. MPS simulators are fully enclosed and replicas of the real flight deck. They are type-specific, such as the Airbus A320 and Boeing 737, and have exact aircraft characteristics combined with an advanced visual system. MPS has an extensive IP portfolio and develops all of its simulators in-house, resulting in unmatched quality and flexibility in production and support. All devices are fully certified prior to shipment and by local authorities such as the European EASA and the American FAA. Over the years, MPS has demonstrated the reliability and quality of its simulators through more than 100,000 training hours on its devices. Today, MPS has deployed simulators to every continent of the world. MPS simulators, a class of its own.